Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rankus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you, everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
We'll bring you the expert interviews, insightful discussions, and practical tips to make motherhood a little easier and help your family thrive.
Please keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to replace the advice, diagnosis, or treatment plans you have with your personal healthcare team. Please have a conversation with your trusted healthcare provider prior to making any changes or implementing any strategies or advice you learn from this podcast.
Whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Here at the Motherhood Alliance podcast, we challenge the status quo, ask the tough questions, and offer a supportive community for moms who want to make an informed, holistic choice.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Andrea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Karen Kieffer, a licensed independent clinical social worker and certified transformational nutrition coach who specializes in trauma, PTSD, anxiety, and depression, with a current focus on those who are preparing to become first-time parents. Karen is the owner of Snowfields Coaching and the creator of Embodied Dialogics, an approach designed to help individuals and couples work through childhood trauma before a baby arrives so they're not carrying old patterns into the next generation. Her work is highly individualized and shaped by decades of experience in mental health systems, education, community development, and leadership. What makes Karen's perspective especially powerful is that it's grounded in lived experience. After navigating her own lifelong trauma and later a cancer diagnosis that prompted her to stop postponing the things that mattered most, she returned to school in her 50s to become a clinician and build the kind of support she wished had existed earlier in her life. We're really excited to share Karen's expertise and experience with you. Let's get started with today's conversation. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Motherhood Alliance podcast. We are in episode 3 with Karen Kieffer. Welcome back, Karen.
Thank you.
We are going to be touching on, in this episode, about some things that we've been referencing in our first 2 episodes. So if you have not listened to those, I highly recommend you go back and listen to them. In episode 1, Karen really shared her story, and I think that's important to be able to understand why she has started a program to be able to help first-time parents to be, and why she's really gotten passionate about this topic. And then in our prior episode, we really talked about how parenting feels harder now than ever before. In this episode, we are going to be diving a little bit more into her actual program that she has created. It's called Embodied Dialogics. So Karen, why don't you just start out this episode with kind of defining what Embodied Dialogics is, and then why is it important to be working with parents before they even have kids?
Embodied Dialogics is an approach that I put together from intensively studying the last 30 years of trauma research, all kinds of mental health and healing, all that stuff. I did a deep dive for years into that. My specialty really is taking all of this giant body of knowledge and streamline it and making it useful in a practical way for people, because you can read Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps a Score book all you want about trauma, and still you don't know what to do with that information. So there's so much information, and I think out in the world, this therapy speak has become part of our language now about diagnosing ourselves and other people. And there's currently this really big trend that I've become aware of in the last year of people becoming estranged from their family and choosing that to protect themselves emotionally. And they're using clinical language to talk about their family relationships, which, it can be helpful, but it is a very kind of one-dimensional view of things. So I took all those things and put together, and I didn't put it together consciously. I developed it as a way of working in my therapeutic practice of how do I incorporate all these things. And there's so many of them with little pieces. And so I learned which ones really helped people immediately. Where were these aha moments where I saw that people were able to make a big jump. That being said, I do have a way that seems to be helpful to people in working through there's a certain very general sequence that I start with. The first one is helping people understand general human dynamics that we all have in common. It's human psychology, our nervous system, all these systems that we have. And we share so much of this, 99% of it, with other animals. And we're learning more and more about the emotional and psychological lives of other species to know how little the difference is in a lot of ways. So first we learn those principles and how to learn about yourself, because that's different. Nobody can say, here's this book about you. Why don't you read it and learn about yourself? It's not like that, right? You are the book. So how do you learn yourself? Because we have so many biases and beliefs about ourselves. Can we be objective? Is that required? Anyway, so that's the first phase, learning about how your system has been shaped and what you are reactive to, or what are your difficulties. They're different for every person because every experience you have from before birth is shaping what your nervous system responds to. Nobody's life experience is the same as anyone else. And that's why generic advice for people isn't helpful. I mean, it can be a little helpful, but it's only helpful in as much as they make it their own in a deep way. So that first phase is for what's going on in your system. And then the principles, then there's a learning of how do we respond to those things? What are the skills you need to interact with that information that you're getting from yourself? What does the present tell you about the past? Because it's another word that's used everywhere, trauma. She had this traumatic thing happen to her, and you don't know if that event was traumatic to the person. The event is not the trauma. The event is how it shifts what your nervous system believes about the world. So you and I could be in the same car crash, and our systems could interpret this very differently. One of us could have PTSD and the other might not. We could be in the same war. They're together on the same day. We could be in the same household as children and have a different response to whatever is going on. One person might be okay. One person might look okay for a long time, but have stuff below the surface, which is most of us. But also, I don't think it's helpful to think about trauma. I think it's helpful to think about what have your experiences been that have shaped you. And you could call them positive or negative or whatever, but all the things, good and bad, have shaped you. So trauma is on a continuum. There's really severe things that really interrupt with the functioning of your life. That's PTSD. But there's a big continuum of what your system has learned because it's operating on all kinds of assumptions from your past experience and projecting them to the future, which might not be appropriate to the present. So this is what we have to distinguish. That's why unless you've done some work with yourself, you don't know what's a traumatic reaction to something and what your intuition is. You don't know the difference. So how do you find that out?
You work with somebody like you who has that experience, who can look at it from a 10,000 point view, right? And I think that's important for most people is, you're right. I'm just even relating to that to myself. I'm like, there's habits that I have, there's things that I do, and why do I do it? I don't think about it. Right. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but how can I improve?
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and that's so critical. So understanding that, we think, I don't know, I think 5% would be big. 5% of conscious decisions we're making all day long. We have to put things on autopilot or we don't have the energy to make all those decisions consciously all the time. That's why we develop habits. That's why you learn a skill. You don't have to keep thinking of every step of it every time you get in the car to drive somewhere. In fact, I drive on the highway and I'm like, oh,
right.
I'm already at work. I don't even remember driving here. That has happened to me more times than I can count and it's not that you weren't present. It's that your autopilot is very skilled. And so that's great. We would love to put consciously things on autopilot and take other things out. So the 5% cognitive stuff, decisions, thought, the rest is run by our body systems in the background. So we need to know what those are and see if those are the things we want. Because that system, just as it learned from the past to where we are now, it can learn something different.
So through your 90-day Embodied Dialogics program that you're kind of breaking down here for us, I can see how somebody listening to this, if they're like, oh yes, I had some trauma in my life and I want to make sure I don't bring that into parenthood, or I want to make sure I'm parenting different than my parents had. That might be someone who's like, yes, I definitely would need to see Karen and like make sure that I'm breaking this down and that I'm entering parenthood with a kind of a clean slate and some fresh skills. But what about people who would say, oh, I don't know, I had kind of an average upbringing. Yeah, there was some things I would do different than my parents, but it was okay overall.
I'll be fine.
I'll be fine. Yeah, I'll be fine. What are some like signs, especially if they have a toddler now, or if they are maybe an aunt or uncle to a kiddo and they can see like some triggers or something? What would be some signs or symptoms that someone has that maybe they do have some underlying things that they need to work through?
So, I'm a person, I never thought about trauma. I mean, I come from a very loving, close family. And yet I had experiences in the moment changed the assumptions my nervous system made of the world. And I would say that was probably harmful. It was not anyone's intention ever. And it's not just our parents that influence our childhood development, right? It's the whole society. It's the bully at school. It's the teacher who thinks you're so wonderful. All of those things combine into shaping those things. So it's not all in parents' control. And this is why paying attention to what's going on with your kid is so important. We, unfortunately or fortunately, we cannot control all of our child's experiences. And so I grew up not thinking that anything was wrong with my childhood. And I would say nothing was wrong with it, and yet things were harmful. So you can be at a very vulnerable point in your development. We develop a sense of self, we develop certain skills. And before we do that, if something happens, like say you're 3 years old and you idolize your big sister, you're following her around doing everything she does. This isn't even a parenting thing. It's just an experience thing. And that sister says, whatever you're doing in your free spirit, your sister says it's stupid. In that moment, because your world is so small, that has such an important effect of somebody who you are so attached to. So is that a trauma? Probably whatever rude thing the kid said. The parents might have even laughed in that moment, not understanding that 3-year-old is not living from your adult view of the world, right? So things happen. Kids don't have power. They don't understand the world. And so their nervous systems jump to conclusions about who they are. And so no matter if you come from the most loving, supportive family, this is how our nervous system learns.
Well, this is where you grow up and think that you're always like this, or this is just who I am.
Exactly. And parenting is generational too. There were generational practices. My parents grew up in the Depression. My dad was born in 1918. And they had very different parenting practices. And those two families and my parents were very different in terms of their relational and parenting styles. But we're much more thoughtful about parenting now, and that puts more pressures on us as parents as well.
That's true.
Compared to previous generations, we're like so judgy about, am I doing the right thing? Our parents probably didn't struggle so much.
I love that. I love your perspective because I mean, just everything you're saying there, I can relate to in my own parenting. And, you do worry. You're so right. It's like, it's great that we have all these resources and we have a little bit, I don't know, not higher standard by any means, but just like how we parent is much different than what it used to be, right? Yeah. And you're right. There's a lot of pressure on ourselves.
And so much judgment of each other.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard to get away from. So I think there are subtle things that we wouldn't necessarily identify as a trauma or even something difficult that really affects and can really harm our children if we don't see how it's operating through us.
And I also find it interesting because I feel like someone, even if they had a bigger trauma in their childhood, say that they get married and they're living the no kids life for a while and they feel very regulated. But then once you have a kiddo, why is it that there are things about kids or the ways that they behave that can pull out these deep things from within us? Like, what is it about the parenting piece that can really pull out these old pieces?
So in our development, our systems operate, like I said, our systems learn through modeling how to do things. So however we were parented is our pattern inside. And unless we consciously change that, that's what's going to come out, along with all the other influences of your life. So that's just on autopilot there. Unless you examine it, that's going to be running. And that is a body process. It's not a thought process. That's just in your system. So you have to think to consciously change that. And the other reason is nothing else matters as much in your life if you are a really conscious parent as that child. It mobilizes all of the instincts that we have. And I think it's there is where if we have instincts as human beings, this is where they show up in modern life, is that desire to protect, nurture, care for, love, help your child survive and cope in the world. It's so important to you. And I remember nobody could make me as angry as my daughter. Like when she was a kid, if she was rude to somebody, I went insane because I don't want her to be that kind of person. I want her to have a better life, be able to have relationships. It reflects on me.
I was going to say it
right?
reflects on the parent, I think, more sometimes that we get angry. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's our stuff. Right?
Yes, for sure.
And that's something we can definitely deal with. But it matters so much. And it's so hardwired in us to care. And it's where all of this unconscious patterning and shaping comes out.
Yeah, I can definitely see the value in having someone to talk through your childhood and your past pieces, especially as a parent myself now, because Dre and I keep looking at each other like, oh yeah, we feel
I
feel this, some of this
totally
stuff.
What you're saying. And I love that you are helping parents, especially that have not gone through any kind of ropes yet, just be more aware of this. Because they're not necessarily gonna use those skills right away, although they might if they have a very cry baby and they have to, deal with things. But it's so important to be aware and just be digging into this.
But I think these are skills that you use all the time because they help you understand why you do what you are doing and gives you the principles. Like, I can't tell you how you should do things. I can't tell you in this moment what should be done. Only you will know that. So learning your own system and the principles, that gives you the tools to decide what's the right thing to do in this situation. Do I need to let my child struggle a little, or is this the time that they need some comforting and nurturing? Like, nobody else can make that decision for you. And depending on what's going on with your stuff, your child's stuff, and that relational thing in the moment, nobody can tell you that, but you need to decide that for yourself based on something. And the more you work with this, the more that some things become obvious. It's like learning anything else. You don't need to think about it anymore. It becomes part of what you do or how you are over time. So bless neuroplasticity for that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, and I also think about these skills that you're talking about learning before you even become a parent. The relationship with your spouse changes after you become a parent too. And so a lot of what you're learning here not only could apply to the child, but also the spouse.
Because what's a really common thing to happen once that baby comes, that partner relationship can collapse, right? Because you're not getting from each other what you used to get before this person came between you. And sometimes it can really be a stress on the relationship if you aren't aware of yourself and each other. And especially if this is unexpected, you didn't plan for this, you didn't really think about this and discuss it, for a long time and how you're going to deal with this situation. Something like 50% of births were unplanned, that kind of thing. So people aren't always in a really mindset of preparation. But it is really important. That's why I love when partners do this together to learn their stuff and each other's stuff. It helps them. It helps their relationship be more supportive, help each other grow together, and parent better together.
Well, and they have a conversation with you. They have conversations with each other. They can, have the realistic expectations. And you can only prepare people so much for having a newborn too.
Exactly.
Honestly, that's really right. Can only do so much. But just knowing how to support each other and to help is going to take them so much further. So, yeah.
And when you're parenting with a partner, you both come from different worlds. Your systems have totally different assumptions about what should happen. And then you could get in a power struggle about which one is better, or you could think about what do we need and what does our child need specifically in this moment, and what's best, not based on having to, protect defend your own way of doing things,
I think that this is great. I mean, I'm curious to learn more about your 90-day program as well, because I think that this could be super beneficial for anyone considering having a baby. And, and I'm guessing you would work with people who are trying to conceive, like they're even just looking toward that season of life.
Absolutely. Right? The more time you give yourself, the better.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, I do want to share with the audience that Karen is offering 10% off a coaching package for listeners. You can use the code MAMAPAPA, all caps, 10. I'll put that in the show notes as well, so you don't get confused. But you can also head to the show notes for a link to her booking link. She also does offer a free consult. So if this is just intriguing you and you just want to have a little bit more of a conversation with her, just talk through your experience and see if what she offers is a good fit, go ahead and book a free consult with her. We do have one more episode coming up. We're going to be switching topics a bit here, and we're going to be learning a little bit about psychedelic therapies. This is something I know almost nothing about.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've heard of different things, but have zero experience or really knowledge on it. So I'm excited to dive into one more episode coming up next. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.